All right, today we're going to pull back the curtain on history a little bit. We're going to look at three hidden forces that have shaped our world in ways you probably never even thought about.
This quote, it really nails what we're talking about today. History isn't just a bunch of old stories in a textbook, right? It's more like the hidden code, the blueprint for our society right now. It literally influences everything, how we think, our governments, even the things that scare us.
So that leads us to the big question, doesn't it? What are these unseen forces of control? We're about to dive into three totally different moments in history, and each one is going to reveal a pretty powerful method of control. And I think the answer is, yeah, they might surprise you.
Okay, first stop, Salem, Massachusetts. The year is 1692. Now I know, it's a story a lot of us have heard before, the Salem Witch Trials. But the force behind it, wow, it is just as relevant today as it was more than 300 years ago. This is a perfect example of how social panic can just spiral out of control and become a deadly, deadly reality. And what was the cost of that panic? 20 people were executed. Think about that. Hundreds more were accused. And the craziest part? The only real evidence was just fear itself.
So what kind of evidence are we talking about here? Was there anything solid? Nope, not a thing. It was all rumors, dreams, weird behaviors, even old personal grudges. See, when there's no actual proof, paranoia kind of steps in and becomes its own evidence. A simple accusation was literally enough to get someone condemned.
And there's actually a name for this whole thing: mass hysteria. It's what happens when this collective anxiety just grabs hold of a group of people. Logic, it just flies out the window. And these irrational beliefs, they spread like wildfire. This was basically the psychological engine driving the whole Salem tragedy. The big lesson from Salem, one that's just as true today, is pretty simple. When a society panics, all the systems we count on for reason and justice, they can completely fall apart. It's a really chilling reminder that group psychology can have actual life or death consequences.
So, in Salem, that control came from the inside, right? Fear bubbling up within the community itself. But what happens when control comes from the top down? Well, for that, let's jump forward in time to 1918. Here, the biggest threat wasn't paranoia, it was the truth.
50 million people. Just let that number sink in for a second. This was a pandemic deadlier than World War I. And yet, for many of us, it's kind of just a footnote in the history books. And the reason why it's so overlooked, well, it all comes down to a battle between public health and public information.
I mean, look at the contrast here. On one hand, you've got governments pushing this message of wartime strength, keep morale high at all costs. But on the other hand, the world's deadliest pandemic is tearing across the globe. So what did they do? To protect that morale, they just actively censored any news about the flu. They decided the truth was just too dangerous for people to hear. And this is the real kicker, the ultimate irony. Why do we call it the Spanish flu? It's because Spain was a neutral country in the war, so they were the only ones reporting on it honestly. And what was their reward for telling the truth? They got their name unfairly attached to this horrible virus forever. Okay, so our final example, this one takes the idea of control to its absolute most extreme and, frankly, most disturbing conclusion. We're about to look at a secret government program that wasn't just trying to shape what the public thought, it was trying to control the human mind itself. So picture this. For 20 years, right at the height of the Cold War, the CIA was running this project called MK Ultra, and it was completely secret. Their goal? It was chillingly simple, really. They wanted to see if they could weaponize drugs like LSD for things like interrogation and mind control. And the whole thing happened completely in the shadows, with zero public knowledge, zero oversight. And who were they testing these things on? Not enemy spies or anything like that. No, it was ordinary American citizens. Soldiers, students, people in hospitals, random people all experimented on without having any idea what was happening, and obviously without their consent. This isn't some spy movie plot. This was real, a hidden, terrifying reality. Man, the lesson from MK Ultra is just, it's a huge warning sign about what happens when power goes unchecked. It shows you just how fragile our personal freedom can be when a government, driven by fear, starts operating behind a wall of total secrecy. All right, so we've just looked at three really different moments in history, right? A witch hunt, a global pandemic, and a secret government mind control program. They seem totally unrelated. But now, let's connect the dots. Let's see the hidden blueprint that they all reveal. And this is where the pattern really starts to emerge. You can almost see it as a progression. It starts with social panic, fear that controls a whole community, like in Salem. Then it evolves into state censorship, controlling information on a massive scale, like with the Spanish flu. And finally, you get to covert manipulation, the attempt to control the individual mind itself, like with MKUltra.
So, what's the big takeaway here? I think it's this. The quest for control, it's one of the most powerful and recurring forces in all of human history. The desire to manage, to manipulate, whether you're controlling a story, an entire population, or just one person's mind, it's this deep undercurrent that continues to shape our world in ways we can see and, more importantly, in ways we can't.
And that really leaves us with one final big question, doesn't it? If these forces were operating back then, a lot of the time in total secret, you have to wonder, what hidden forces are shaping our world right now, today? What's writing the blueprint for our future?